Question: why is the economy growing while at the same time consumer spending is slowing? Which suggests that consumer confidence is also waning. Yet the US Feds are planning on raising interest rates to mop up liquidity. This is the Neoliberal Round podcast. Today, we discuss the US economy grew by 2.6% last quarter, yet outlook remains grim. The US economy, or the gross domestic product of the US, grew by 2.6% last quarter. Yet, economic outlook remains grim. Consumer spending slows, and prices are still rising, while wages are stagnant. Minimum wage in Philadelphia, for example, is still at $7.25 per hour. Moreover, OPEC, the oil-producing energy countries, plans to cut oil outputs by 2 million barrels per day in November. In fact, gas prices are quickly climbing back up, and just today, regular gas is at $4.50 at Blue Oil in Germantown. I'm talking about regular gas being 87. In Philadelphia, up from $3.85, and that was just a few days ago, less than 3 days ago, and is rising. The US Fed's plans to raise interest rates. The US Fed plans to raise interest rates again, so as to mop up liquidity. Yet income inequality is at an all-time high, with a Gini coefficient of over 0.9. Now, it is important to point out what is meant by mopping up liquidity, so that we can put this growth and the Fed's plans into perspective. Mop-up liquidity is an economic term used to mean a strategy to cut down or reduce spending or money within the economy, especially when there is too much money chasing too few goods, known as inflation. Again, mopping up liquidity. To mop up liquidity is an economic term used to mean a strategy to cut down or reduce spending or money within the economy, especially when there is too much money chasing too few goods. And we call that inflation. And you guys are all too familiar with inflation, but that's what to mop up. So to mop up liquidity must also be understood within the economics of demand and supply. When demand is high and supply is low, then this drives up prices. This situation drives up prices. Ceteris paribus, all things being equal, such as wages being relatively above inflation, etc. And the converse is true when demand is low and supply is high. Then this drives down prices. In the US economy today, prices are rising and real wages are falling, which seems to suggest that the economy is either contracting. Sorry, not contracting. That's not the word there. Correcting. The economy is either correcting itself, correcting the monies from all the monies that were floating around during COVID. Is correcting itself, taking back all the monies that were floating around during COVID, or the supply issue affected by transportation during COVID, which affected distribution. In fact, COVID created a situation where there was too much money chasing too few goods. Given the problem of transportation and supply, which pushed up prices. President Biden's administration had to pump millions of dollars into the shipping and transportation sector after COVID in the beginning of 2022, which had helped to free up supply again. However, the damage from the lack of supply to meet the huge demand stemming from the stimulus had already started, and this led to a consumer inflation. It led to an inflation that the U.S. has not seen since the Great Depression of 9.1% in June of 2022. In fact, and I am actually looking at the figures here, and if you go to ronaldocmckenzie.com, you will see a graph of this particular of what we're talking. It shows U.S. consumer price inflation from the World Bank and from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. As of June 2022, it was at a 40-year high of 9.1%. But of course, as of today, it's now at 8.2%. That's September figures, and of course, what happened? Fuel prices fell, so that really helped to alleviate some of the problems that we were having. Now, gas prices were high, resulting from the Russian invasion and the embargoes that the US had put on some Russian oil and energy imports. However, the economy started to bounce back in mid to late July and recently posted a GDP growth of 2.6%. However, this comes at a very ominous time. Nevertheless, President Biden's administration and the Democrats are quick to use the small growth as meat to dangle before their lackluster base during this midterm election, which requires a win for the Dems to keep their majorities. However, this growth report comes at a time when the U.S. economy is at the twilight of what appears to be more hardships stemming from a looming energy crisis and the relative deprivation, where societies with rising inequalities appear to have more crime and violence. The Gini coefficient measures income inequality within a society. Zero suggests perfect equality, and any number over zero suggests unevenness. The higher the number, the greater the number above 0.1, whatever the case is, the greater the level of inequality. Jamaica, for example, has a Gini of 0.45 when I studied Jamaica's income inequality in 2013. And most post-industrial countries hovers around 0.3, such as the Scandinavian countries, which is probably at 0.1, 0.15. 0.001, something of the sort, with very little inequality. And of course, they are more monolithic society, while US and the UK and other diverse societies with more black and brown peoples have higher income inequalities. And of course, you can look at my book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance, chapters 2 to 5, published in 2021. It's available in Barnes & Noble and wherever you can. I talk about the Gini coefficient. I talked about the Gini coefficient at length, so you can refer to that, because this is not a book. This is just a brief podcast commentary, and you can refer to an article that I have written on the issue just now in the neoliberal.com. Sorry, in ronaldocmckenzie.com. But let us continue. Now, why is the economy growing while at the same time consumer spending is slowing? That is a very important question. Why is the economy growing while at the same time consumer spending is slowing? Which suggests that consumer confidence is also waning. Yet, the US Feds are planning on raising interest rates to mop up liquidity. And of course, you see why it was very important that I laid the foundation to define for you mopping up liquidity and the and so on. That's why the introduction of this particular discussion was very important. The preface of anything is important, so that now we can get into some more important meat. Why is the economy growing while at the same time consumer spending is slowing? Which suggests that consumer confidence is also waning. Yet the US Feds are planning on raising interest rates to mop up liquidity. You should know what that is because we discussed that earlier. Mopping up liquidity, again, means there's too much money chasing too few goods, which usually results in price increases. However, median incomes are falling, and wages have largely remained unchanged. How then can the Feds mop up liquidity when confidence is falling and working class families are struggling? Where's the money or the liquid? Where's the money or the liquid? Certainly not in working class families. It is at the top. I'm gonna say this again. This is very important. Why is the economy growing while at the same time consumer spending is slowing? Which suggests that consumer confidence is also waning. Yet the US Feds are planning on raising interest rates to mop up liquidity. Mopping up liquidity means there's too much money chasing too few goods, which usually results in price increases. However, median incomes are falling and wages have largely remained unchanged. How then can the Feds mop up liquidity when confidence is falling and working class families are struggling? Where's the money or the liquid? Certainly not in the working class families. It is at the top. The diagram below, the diagram that I have before me, and of course, again, you can refer to the article to this particular discussion that we are having is also available at ReinaldoCMcKenzie.com in the neoliberal post. It's actually the latest blog. If you're reading it sometime after 10:28, then you're reading. It's supposed to be there, flashing across the screen. You can also access another article of its kind in the neoliberal.com. But the diagram that I'm here referring to shows that real wages have been falling since COVID, since 2019, from $69,500 per annum in 2019 to $67,500 in 2020. However, those at the top have been experiencing increases in their net income and wealth. Nevertheless, conservative economists argue that the market must be free of interference and restrictions, as those at the top will drive wealth and stimulate growth. But that has not been happening, or it hasn't happened. That's non-existent. Those at the top are getting richer or fatter, let's use that for want of a better word, getting fatter, while those at the bottom and in the middle are getting poorer or thinner. The market system has never guaranteed the automatic gains for everyone. But this has always been the case. In fact, in neoliberalism, my book, Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance, I raised the concept of the bureaucratic phenomenon developed by Michael Crozier, whereby neoliberal globalization was supposed to be the sine qua non of economic prosperity and growth. once smaller and newer states plugged into the new economic world order beginning in the 1960s and 70s with the introduction of the IMF and then later the World WTO to guide fair game within the new globalized world. However, the rules served only to prop up the rich, or the few rich, post-industrial countries over the new arrivals who eventually became dependent capitalist countries. This Pharisaical mentality and duplicity is not only evident within the global, but also within the local, where the most vulnerable peoples are always made to be left behind, are always made to be left behind. While politicians fight over remedies that only deepen these people's plights, all but ensuring that those at the top continue their dominance and advantages over the rest. I'm going to say that again because this is important. Nevertheless, conservative economists argue that the market must be free of interference and restrictions, as those at the top will drive wealth and stimulate growth. But that has not been happening. Those at the top are getting richer, while those at the bottom and in the middle are getting poorer. The market system has never guaranteed the automatic gains for everyone. But this has always been the case. In fact, in neoliberalism, globalization, income inequality, poverty, and resistance, I raised the concept of the bureaucratic phenomenon developed by Michael Crozier, whereby neoliberal globalization was supposed to be the sine qua non of economic prosperity and growth once smaller and newer states plugged into the new economic world order, beginning in the 1960s and 1970s and beyond, with the introduction of the IMF and later the WTO to guide fair game within the new globalized world. However, the rules served only to prop up the rich post-industrial countries over the new arrivals who eventually became dependent capitalist countries. This Pharisaical mentality and duplicity is not only evident within the global, but also within the local, where the most vulnerable peoples are always made to be left behind, while politicians fight over remedies that only deepen these people's plights, all but ensuring that those at the top continue their dominance and advantage over the rest. You know, we talk about scarce benefits and spoils. Those at the bottom, they get scarce benefits and spoils, and the politicians are in parliament or in the house fighting about how to give out these spoils and scarce benefits. Anyways, we continue. We continue with that. Of course, I have a diagram of real wages that shows real wages over time from 2010 to 2020, median real wages in thousands, and that's obtained from the it's adapted from the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, www.bls.gov, for people who want to refer to statistics and to see data. And of course, I'm going to refer to another data or another graph here, which shows and it's a very important graph, which is important to the conversation that we are having here. It's an image showing drastic spike in household net worth in 3 percentiles. The bottom 50 percentile, the bottom 50, the 50th to the 90th percentile, the 90th to the 99th percentile, and the top 1%. And you can refer to, of course, RonaldoCMcKenzie.com and look for my latest article. The latest article is entitled "The U.S. Economy Grew by 2.6% last quarter, yet outlook remains grim." So, the image showing drastic spike in household net worth in 3 percentiles. The bottom 50, the 50 to 90th percentile, the 90th to the 99th percentile, and the top 1%. Furthermore, not only are real wages low and poverty rising, but income inequality is also high, while spending on luxury goods remains high. that's where the gains of growth are being enjoyed, and that is what is causing the inflation. That's what the Feds, and that's why the Feds want to mop up liquidity, the heavy spending at the top. Because if consumers are spending as much, if consumers aren't spending as much, given falling median incomes and wages and rising poverty, then what is driving up prices? Oil, COVID, the Russian war, which would affect supply and demand. However, oil prices in the US have fallen significantly and are back to pre-summer levels, and the economy has bounced back since COVID, yet not for those at the bottom. Moreover, during COVID, those at the top benefited from tremendous gains from government stimulus when most did not need it, while those at the bottom barely received any stimulus help that provided any major relief that could create any independence and stability for them and their families. In fact, the diagram above showing income inequality, and which we just referenced, suggests that the net worth of those at the top spike. When I mean spike, I mean spiked. It's almost represented by a straight line, a vertical line, while still receiving government subsidy and stimulus. Those at the bottom did not receive any and did not experience any change. In their net worth, and politicians argue over who should get the support and ended up giving much of the stimulus to the rich, while the poor had to jump over hoops to get any help that largely missed many. Essentially, we learned that we can never rely on a free market to be free of interference, as people are driven by self-greed, and those who control the factors of production and their political interests with access may have sway over the market. And of course, I have a figure here that shows poverty rate in the US, again from the BLS.gov, from the World Bank, and also from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics, which shows poverty falling from a high of 16% to 10.5%. But since 2019, it's been going back up. It was 10.5% in 2019. Now it's at 11.4%. It was 11.4% in 2020 and rising. So moreover, and you can refer to again RenaldoCMcKenzie.com for the article. Moreover, inflation spiked to an all-time high in June of 2022 to 9.1%, and while the economy rebounded in July of 2.6% in GDP growth, inflation remains a high at 8.2% and is hurting those at the bottom 50th percentile of the population the most. In addition, poverty rates are rising since 2019 and has spiked since 2020 and seem to eye its all-time high of 16%. Therefore, and of course, I have a figure here that shows economic indicators. What are the economic indicators? Cons, in spite of this GDP growth. The tech market is reporting weakness. Housing mortgage rates spike, hurt sales. The inflation is still too high, and of course, consumer spending too low. 1, 2, 3. There are 4 things that's still hurting us. And of course, I got CNN provided a report that shows economic indicators, and they only came up with 4. The tech reporting weaknesses: housing mortgage rate spike, hurts sales. Of course, the tech industry, the housing industry, inflation, and consumers. All those are 4 cons, 4 areas which is hurting the economy right now. But of course, there's also income inequality. And rising poverty, and stagnant wages, and so on and so forth. What is wrong with these news agencies? Therefore, anyways, let's wrap this up here. The latest, and I will conclude and bring all of this together in just one paragraph here to say that, therefore, the latest GDP growth report didn't provide any confidence that working class families can rejoice over. Only politicians While politicians hurriedly post this minuscule report as a victory that may ensure a win in the upcoming elections, economists and majority of Americans experiencing hardships and fall in the power of their dollar and changes to their lives. In fact, economists agree that this report must be seen not as a move upward, but a move sideways. No, that's quite... Not as a move upwards, but a move sideways. Moreover, crime and violence has also spiked, especially in black and brown communities. And major cities in the US. While politicians looking forward to the midterms gloat over numbers that do nothing to change working class families' lives or to be for us to be positive about the economic outlook moving forward. And of course, I have a diagram or a graph showing the U.S. economy returns to growth, but pickup in gross domestic product reflected sustained yet more moderate spending. Of course, you can visit RonaldoCMcKenzie.com to read the particular article and to also access the links, and there's also diagrams and so on and so forth, and links that you can get access to if you want to follow this article, read about and discuss this article some more. Of course, you can also refer to my book, and I'm the author of Neoliberalism, Globalization, Income Inequality, Poverty and Resistance. I'm also doing a research. I'm a doctoral candidate researcher at Georgetown University, and I graduated from the University of Pennsylvania. And I did, of course, part of my research and part of my study was looking at globalization, looking at income inequality and poverty. So I can speak to this issue. As a student of philosophy, and as an academic. I can speak to this particular issue. And I also was happy to study economics under one of the greatest economic minds at Excelsior Community College, which helped me to understand from a young man at 19 years old, working at my first time in college in 1998. Was helped me to understand. I developed a passion for economics since I was in high school. I started studying economics in grade 9, and at the end of high school, and even at the end of my stint at Excel College, I think I was the most outstanding student. I was the only person that passed economics at Bridgeport High School, and I was awarded a distinction in economics. I really loved economics. Of course, I then studied theology and religion, and then of course sociology and psychology and philosophy and many other things after that. But I give God thanks for providing me with a perspective to share with the world, so that we can think about these things. Because these things, I tell people, the world doesn't have to be complex, but the world is complex, and it's complex for a reason. It's complex because when it is complex like this, it's easy for people to hijack it. And then you have people who are exposed to education that gives them proficiency to operate within the complexity of society, and there are those who are not given the education within which to operate.
You're absolutely right about that.
Society is complex, I'm telling you. And you look at Wall Street and how complex and technical these equations that they come up with. It is done so that only some people can understand and learn the language, and they can keep the wealth within that particular. You understand what I'm saying? And we'll talk about this some more. People, when I sit here and talk, I'm not talking nonsense or conspiracy. Okay.
You're making good points.
But
you're having me think.
To whom much is given, much is required, and I'm honored to have been able to go to some of the schools and access the education that I have to be able to understand things and share it with the world and to share it with all people. People can access all of this for free, because I want people to also, this is academic work, this is academic stuff which I'm sharing with the world, so that, okay, we can dissect society and get to understand society, because society is complex.
Everyone learns from everyone.
Of course.
If
Indeed.
you guys do not know.
Indeed.
We all learn from each other. So, and there's a lot of content, a lot of information, a lot of updates and that's going on in the world today.
Look what's going on in Russia and how President Vladimir Putin has hijacked and brainwashed the minds of the Russian people to think that they were sending their sons on a peacekeeping mission or some other sort, and then hijack the news and control the narrative. And that is why I said we must always keep our government and our leaders on their toes.
That's a mind.
Okay.
That
don't be too hooked. Don't be too hooked on a particular thing, like, so that you can't critique it. Don't be indoctrinated by the power brokers.
Defective mind.
And then they control your thinking and your mind. We have to be thinkers. We have to be critical thinkers. This is the Neoliberal Round podcast. We are looking at the U.S. economy. It grew by 2.6% last quarter, but yet outlook remains grim. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining. And subscribe to the show, Ronaldo C. McKenzie. And by the way, I just discovered that we are now at the Audible. The Neoliberal Round podcast is now available on the Audible for free. For free. It's available on Amazon Music. I mean, I'm giving God thanks for.
Yes, guys.
We are everywhere. We're everywhere.
All platforms.
Everywhere.
Give us your support
for free. So please subscribe to the show.
It can't get any better.
And the information that we are providing you is not no DB information. You know, it's well researched. It's coming from academic rigor.
Yes, it is.
Academic rigor. It's coming from academic rigor and information that is well thought out, and the minds and these discussions are facilitated at the highest levels and at the lowest levels, and within and without. But we all need this information, guys. But support us, share the show with your friends, and send us a feedback. Follow us on Twitter, and look for us. And by the way, go to the neoliberal.com or ronaldocmckenzie.com. We have some of these discussions available, and we're going to be and we just actually changed the website, the neoliberal.com. We just beefed up a little. We have a lot going on. Please check out our website. At our Ants Business Solution, we provide a website. You know, if you want to see our work, go to Ants Business Solution, ANTZ business, spelled BUSINESS, business solutions, SOLUTIONS.com, antsbusinesssolutions.com, or go to ronaldocmckenzie.com. Go down to the bottom tag and click on grow your business, and then you can go visit our Ants Business Solution. You can see their page, which is beautiful. It's beautiful, and they can turn your website or your dream into something like what they have. It's a beautiful work. We have a beautiful team, a beautiful IT guys. We have linked up with this company. We're now one, and they work with us and we work with them, and they provide exceptional service. Check them out. Search engine optimization. What else? Website design, web hosting, so on and so forth. And check them out. And of course, check out our paper writing services. Subscribe. Reach out to us. Podcast. But if you need to talk to us and about doing a podcast, and you're thinking about doing a podcast, talk to us. We will help you, and we will talk with you about how to get that done. Now, that particular service is not free. I have a second book that's about to come out. That will come out. I am hoping that it can come out before the end of this year. Neoliberalism Reconsidered.
Yes, hopefully, yes. But you have a lot of projects, and
we're
working hard,
yeah.
guys, you know.
Oh, just so you know, before we forget, we have a poll. There's a poll on Twitter. There's a Twitter poll. Go to RonaldoCMckenzie.com. Ronaldo McKenzie on Twitter. or the neoliberal.com, and please participate in the Twitter. And this is the question that we're asking on Twitter. St. Louis and other U.S. cities with high crime rates are extremely unequal. Does St. Louis and other U.S. cities with high crime and violence suffer from relative deprivation? And I think you guys know what relative deprivation is by now. And the podcast that we did before this one talks about relative deprivation and what it is. And the question is yes or no, or yes and no, or I'm not sure, I don't know. Those are the options. It gets, that particular poll really gets.
So give us your views.
Gets people to.
What do you all think?
People are going to want to read what relative deprivation is, and then they're probably going to want to look at the podcast and listen to that episode, the previous episode.
Yes, because you guys will help us with our analytics. Okay.
Help us with our analytics.
And that's your guys' engagement and support.
This is the neoliberal. This is the neoliberal podcast. It's actually 5:56 a.m. I'm Ronaldo McKenzie.
And I am Dante Nelson.
Serving the world today to solve tomorrow's challenges. That's our tagline.
Yes, it is.
Through our communication, which is to make popular what was the monopoly.
What was the monopoly?
What good.